almost did it again. Oh yeah. I wasn't feeling that one. I'll try that again. Oh yeah. What's up, y'all? It's your boy, the one and only A Switch, aka who keep putting this whipped cream on my booty. Oh, that really isn't funny, but that is taking me out for some reason. AKA put that butter and cheese on my biscuit real quick. I'm not high, I promise. Oh god. AKA the Komake Tiger Dropper, AKA the undisputed, undefeated, uncontested social distancing champion, AKA the nigga lip master, bringing you yet another episode of Switches Sights, episode 153 to be exact. Today's date is May 12th, 2022. For those that may not know, Switches Sights podcast is a solo video game podcast where your boy just talks about that. What else? Anything pressing to talk about? Nothing that comes to mind. I guess outside what the kind of crazy, the baby formula. There apparently is a shortage of baby formula, that's crazy. I don't know what I mean. Toilet paper is scarce, but just no baby formula. That just sounds dangerous. But I mean, it's just concerning, if anything. So hopefully, all the babies are nurtured, and all of what that entails. You know what I mean? So. Outside of that, what else? Felt like there was something monumental, but I don't think there actually is. Probably some random Twitter thing. I don't know. What am I even talking about right now? I don't know. Well, let's stop the dilly-dally and get right into it. First topic of discussion. If I could type. Xbox outages. So, this was, I believe, over the past weekend. Xbox, pretty much everything under the Xbox family, whether that be Xbox One, Xbox X, 360, devices that support cloud gaming, had a pretty like severe outage. And at least why I bring this up is not necessarily because, I guess, servers online, I guess we could, I'll just play a single player game. But that's the kicker in of itself too. Apparently a lot of folks, who own digital games apparently weren't able to play them as well. So it's like, well, this is just, I could just glance at stuff or maybe watch a YouTube video, Netflix. So yeah. So at least that brings up like a very concerning aspect. I mean, I know we talked about PlayStation as well, but this is, I guess this is kind of unexpected for Xbox to have something like this as, in addition to, PlayStation, where, post-apocalyptic world where where we still happen to still have electricity somehow, and can't kind of be SOL. I think not necessarily every game, but I think there are select games. I believe it's not really a dedicated consistency to it, but it's still crazy. I think depending on the game, like I saw a tweet where you essentially they need to check, depending on the game, mind you, but still, just the fact that that's more than likely a huge number is kind of scary. As somebody who is I wouldn't say physical purist. What is it? A physical advocate. Yeah, physical advocate. I do, like to get some digital games, mainly games that I do see myself playing fairly consistently, like throughout throughout the year or whatever, which tends to be multiplayer games. But that yeah, this definitely solidifies that. But then it's like the whole thing now where it's like, I think the most recent example is probably Halo Infinite, where technically the disc doesn't even really have the game at all, or something like that. I believe, I think at least probably like 40% of the game is on the disc, and they left the rest for you to download. So that like literally defeats the whole purpose. So more than likely, hopefully, there'll probably be some Halo Infinite Complete Edition, which kind of sounds very contradictory when you think about it. But that's just crazy. And of course, obviously, the buffoonery with the Nintendo Switch going on, where I think the Kingdom Hearts trilogy, you literally have to stream it if you want to play it on the Switch. There's no option you can't play it physically on the Switch. You have to stream it to your Switch to play it, that's like, well, what am I doing? what are you doing? And then I think there's like legit games on the Switch where it's just literally just the box and then just a digital code you get to just download and play the game. It's like, that defeats the whole purpose, in my opinion. I mean, I know some people who get digital and like to have a physical case with it, even though there isn't any tangible media to it. But it's like, damn, like, I want to know I could just pop it in and play it. It may not be, with today's standards where it's like everything is getting patched to oblivion. But at least it's playable. Which that's a whole nother thing. It's all bad, man. This is a scary future we're going to. I'll definitely say that. I'm definitely holding and touching, maybe some slight caressing of the media that I own. Just stuff like this. Scary. Scary stuff. Scary stuff. Hopefully Microsoft sees this as a lesson, at least specifically for at least the single player games that you can't play online because of the licenses, or it needs to check in, essentially kind of going back to the very horrible presentation of the initial kind of showing of the Xbox One, aka the VCR. The 2013 VCR, essentially. So we shall see, but that does not feel great. Let me tell you, it's one thing where servers down, can't play online, okay, but then it's a whole nother thing where you have your primary Xbox, it's set as your primary, you own the game, you bought it, and it's downloaded, but you can't play it. That clearly needs to be rectified, especially, when the Xbox Xenion, whatever the next generation is, and then when eventually the series gets to a point of retirement, if you will. Scary times. Hold your CDs tight. Hold your CDs tight. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But aren't you gonna crush them? Hold them tight. Just hold them. Just hold them unconditionally. Don't let go. Let me move on. Let me move on. Redfield. You can see where I had a minor case of the word jumbles. Starfield and Redfall have both been delayed to 2023. So just was announced earlier today from Bethesda. We'll read the little quip they got here. We've made the decision to delay the launches of Redfall and Starfield to the first half of 2023. The teams at Arcane Austin, Redfall, and Bethesda Game Studios Starfield have incredible ambitions for their games. We want to ensure that you receive the best, most polished versions of them. We want to thank everyone for their excitement for Redfall and Starfield. That energy is a huge part of what inspires all of us every day and drives our own excitement for what we are creating. We can't wait to share our first deep dive into the gameplay for both Redfall and Starfield soon. Thank you for your support. So, I think well, I can't even say that because I think Bethesda has been fairly consistent with their announcement to release consistency, if I recall. I think Skyrim was announced during an E3 and released on its date, I think 11/11/11. I remember that. Fallout 4, I know that for sure. They announced it at E3 and released I think in November, October-ish, and was on point. So can't even really say that. So it's fine. It's fine. Take your time. Take your time, guys. I keep going back to the quote. What is it? Mr. Miyamoto. What is it? A bad game released early will always be bad, but I gotta always mess it up. Always mess it up. Always mess it up. A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. There we go. Wise words, I'd say. Sounds pretty smart to me. It's okay. It's a lot coming. I mean, at this point, I'm like, hey, the more breathing room, the better, So I'm not freaking out over it, but it's okay. It's okay. Moving on. If I could find my code. It did. Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak was announced. Well, of course it was announced, but they announced a digital event showing a little bit more of Monster Hunter, which premiered earlier this week. And some interesting tidbits to kind of digest, munch on, if you will. Firstly, they confirmed a returning monster, which was, I believe, the Seregios, the bleed, the monster that make you bleed. So that's gonna be a new affliction to get acquainted with coming back. I think he premiered in Generations, I want to say. So it's good to see Seregios back. He a bitch though. I mean, don't get it twisted. He's still a bitch. Just putting that out there and putting that in the universe. Just want that to be established, known. They announced some variants of existing monsters from the game. I think Almarillion. Let me look up. Make sure I'm covering what I need to. Yes, Reggio's coming back. Aurora Sumnacanth. Then the magma variant of Almudron. Got that? Huh? Yeah. Almudron, but magma, right? Just saying. Hunter actions. That's something they showed. So from what at least they showed in the gameplay, you can now take 2 hunter skills with you on a hunt, and you can switch between them on the fly. I don't think there's like any penalty or cooldown for that. Let me check. Yeah, switch skill swap function, allowing hunters to switch between 2 sets of silk bind skills during combat, which will open a whole new layer of combat opportunities that were never possible before. Players will also be able to perform a swap evade move, which will allow their hunters to use switch skill swap while dodging enemy attacks, while creating fast and exciting options for offensive and defensive playstyles. That's pretty cool. That reminds me, I'm getting some vibes from Generations Ultimate, I think. What was it? The one style. I think it was Adept, where essentially you got this really dope stance where you're technically in a evasive state. So like while you're holding the button down, which one of the detriments is that it heavily drains your stamina meter, while you're holding that button down, and that's draining fast, and a monster hits you or whatever, you'll automatically evade without getting hit. So that definitely sounds like where this inspiration is coming from with that aspect to it. But that's a nice spin on it, where you essentially, when you're put into the stance, you can also, while in the process of switching to your other skill, can also automatically evade. That's at least what I'm assuming. That at least what they're making it seem to be, and kind of from what I saw in the gameplay is what it's looking like as well. So count me in. I mean, I was in already, but count me in again. Just give me count me in 2 more times now. It was just want to be counted at once, but now after hearing this, I'm like, count me in again. I want to go again. Yeah, nothing too crazy. Oh yeah, they did provide more details on Malzeno, who's the flagship monster for this DLC. They revealed that he's like more vampiric in his abilities. Well, I think they hinted at that, but I don't think they really necessarily elaborated on what that's going to mean for like gameplay when you're fighting him. But at least from what they described in the video, his main ability is the power to grab and absorb the life force of any creature it can capture. The more life it can absorb in combat, the more powerful it can become. It also has certain attacks that will cause a hunter to gain a blood blight debuff status. While blood blight is active, hunters will constantly lose health and will only be able to recover health by attacking Malzeno until the debuff ends. Assuming that hunters will not be able to recover health with potion. Oh, ooh, that's devious. That's devious. So specifically, I didn't catch that in the video, but specifically, I would assume that would be the case too, knowing that it's Monster Hunter. So if you get the Malzeno debuff with the blood blight, your health is pretty much periodically draining like poison, and the only way you can get some of that back is actually attack the monster more, which is, depending on how his his moveset is, that's kind of dangerous in of itself too. So I don't know, that feels like a trap to like increase the odds of you fainting, getting carded for sure, I would say. Especially if you can't heal during that period. But I assume it's probably going to be some item you can use, like a deodorant, like when you get pooped on by the monkeys. What other one? I guess technically similar to Seregios is bleed, where there's a little various tricks, like I think for bleed, if you eat a steak, it automatically heals it, or if you crouch for a certain period of time, you can heal the effects of bleed. But for this, I'm pretty certain there's obviously for sure going to be some item you can use during the hunt that negates it. Maybe a no berry, maybe a no berry is enough. Who knows? But there's definitely some workarounds for it. But that's a new interesting debuff that encourages you to fight. It sounds similar to Gore Magala's, but I don't think Gore Magala's, definitely did not drain your health. Didn't drain your health, and yeah, it was, I think it actually buffed you depending on the circumstances or something like that. So not too bad the more I'm thinking about it, but definitely not for the newbies. Not for the newbies, but then again, newbies wouldn't really be. You have to get to a certain point to get to this monster anyway. At least as far as other previous DLCs are concerned as well. So looking good. I don't need any more information. Just give me the game when it comes out. May 6th, I think. It's not too far. I've kind of given up on trying to get my play PC and catch up because I don't got time for that. I really don't. I don't want to play like 150 hours again. Yeah, I'm good. Apparently they haven't released any mods to like transfer save data if you are kind of savvy about that. So I guess I'm sticking on the Switch version, even though got the PC version just to glance at it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure something out. Who knows? I'm still bitter about that. We've been past World where like that was the same issue, and like, okay, all right, now we're on Rise where it's a legitimate game where I think it's pretty, I would assume it's pretty doable, but Capcom just let me down, man. Just want to simply transfer my character from the Switch to the PC. I don't think that's too difficult. They did it from the 3DS to the Switch for God's sakes. But I digress. I'm only gonna get more bitter and angry about it. I'm only gonna get more bitter and angry about it. So I'm gonna let it go. I'll leave it where it's at. But I'm not happy. Not happy at all. Moving on. Oh, did I mess up the damn? I did. Why? Why? Deadspace remake, which was announced a while back. Coming out with the big balls, coming out with the massive cojones, coming out with that big energy. Announcing well, I guess it's kind of subjective, but a pretty fairly definitive date of January 27th, 2023, out of nowhere. So at least that tells me that's a lot of I don't even know, a lot of confidence, that's for sure. So at least that confidence they exude is rubbing off on me. I'm like, damn, all right, they know what they got. They got something special. So I'm like, okay, you got me invested now. So I'm all in. I think they announced this like last year. So like what, this is, well, they probably were working on it previously a little bit, but at least from what they've told us, it seems like the development time was like, at least, let's see if this is projected, maybe like 2.5 years, which is kind of impressive for a game like this, and a reimagining. But I mean, at the same time, it is, the original was 8 hours, and they're kind of essentially drawing inspiration and deviating in some ways off of it too, but it is technically being rebuilt. So I mean, that could factor in as well. So impressive either way. Hopefully it it sticks to this date. I mean, if you making a bold statement this early in, what, like 7 months ahead of it actually dropping, that shows a lot of confidence. So they clearly must be at a spot where they know they can nail this date. So good on them. Good on live stream or motive specifically. There it is, motive, doing their stuff. They put the balls on the table. They put the balls on the table. They want you to look at it. Look at it. Do you like what you... Let me stop. Moving on. Interesting story here. So, this was from Event Hubs, where there was a video interviewing, I think, a former developer for Street Fighter, or I want to say maybe a community manager that was involved. Let me see. Oh. Well, never mind. This was something that got blew up, I guess. Anyway, at least just to bring some backstory on it. The story was that apparently, I I think due to this Quentin Tarantino movie that had a depiction of Bruce Lee, um, the family of Bruce Lee was not very happy about its portrayal. It seemed like a very crass and like just derogatory representation of Bruce Lee, because they essentially said, I think in the movie, that it was Bruce Lee on top of it that made it worse. But so that led a statement to be, taken out of context regarding that essentially the family of Bruce Lee doesn't like any other depictions of Bruce Lee, more or less. Which I'm like, that's kind of weird, because like it's not necessarily Bruce Lee, it's somebody that's inspired by Bruce Lee, but not Bruce Lee. So, yeah. So let's see. In terms of clarification about video game interpretations of Bruce Lee, and is any what's being said true? Can we get an official statement? Blah blah blah. So the Bruce Lee account, who's presumably handled by the family of Bruce Lee, we never made any comments of this nature. We have no idea who this guy, I guess the guy who was talking about the Bruce Lee controversy, says his close friends of family are, but his comments are entirely false surrounding Bruce Lee family. So at least in that respect, it seems like, yeah, that's pretty much unsubstantiated stuff, more or less. So would have cut this from the news tidbit, but you know what? I guess it's worth talking about, because I think that I think it is still something to kind of divulge from here. It's like still interesting to talk about, the depiction of characters who are inspired by legendary characters, which is, I think, always a weird legal thing. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily illegal to do that, where it's like, it's not the character, but like a depiction of a character. But I don't really necessarily see any, I don't know, defamation or anything like that. But at the same time, it's still, again, an inspiration from a character, not a direct depiction of the character necessarily, which I think is what would legally make these characters safe, like Fei Long from Street Fighter, Law Lee from Tekken, who else? Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat, and many other characters that at least don't come to mind immediately. It seemed like definitely every crappy fighting game from back in the day had a Bruce Lee, inspiration as well. So at least everybody was thinking that because of the Quentin Tarantino ruining everything, that Bruce Lee family was like, all right, we had enough. Nobody else is going to depict Bruce Lee again. Something like that. But clearly wasn't the case. Just a statement taken out of context by somebody who apparently wasn't very aware or knew of this. So yeah, interesting tidbit either way though. So moving on. Mortal Kombat. I guess they could also be what is it? I want to say Bob the Builder, but damn it, Tim Allen, Home Improvement. Yeah, that's actually more accurate. Anyway, Gotham Knights. They revealed a new gameplay demo, which I actually have not fully looked at, but at least why I brought this up. Damn, this is straight up Batman, just without the Batman. Oh, yeah, I'm in. Um, with the trailer, at least the biggest revelation of this game, I think this is definitely one of the first games to not include PS4 and Xbox One, and is essentially going full current gen now. Um, I'm not sure if they initially announced that it would be or not, but either way, I think we're at a point now where I think it is time to start. It's time to start getting exclusive to new gen. I mean, we're 2 years in this current generation. Yes, PlayStation, mainly I'd say PlayStation is probably the hardest console still to get at this point, but it's not, it doesn't feel impossible in my opinion. I mean, if you are looking hard enough, I think you can definitely snag one if you really want one. At least I feel. But I think it's at some point you have to cut the cord for the previous gen to actually get the benefits, or fully push the benefits of these current generation consoles now, which is good to see, I'd say. Yeah, I think it's time. Of course, I have nothing against games concluding that, but I do feel that essentially whenever you include the previous generation platforms when developing a game, I think they generally make sure it runs for the lowest lowest powerful console first, and then they essentially upscale everything from there. And then that type of design philosophy, I think, ultimately does suffer for people with current gen consoles because of that, where they can't really fully utilize the capabilities of these new consoles. At least the biggest new advancement now is the super insanely fast SSDs, which I think is so far is kind of underrated. But I think because of the fact that games are not, what's the word I'm looking for? That games are not built from the ground up with the architecture of these consoles in mind, that they don't get to really utilize the capabilities of that, which like, let's say hypothetically Grand Theft Auto, you can load into the game within 5 seconds, and no loading, no nothing, can go inside, build into stuff and not load or whatever, which I think that's very low. But there's a lot more intricate stuff, like of course what Ratchet and Clank did with being able to to load into worlds and do the rift transportation and stuff, which is when you think about it, it's pretty demanding stuff, and that can only really be done exclusively on current gen consoles. So it's just at some point you have to cut people off, and then in turn that will encourage people from the previous generation to upgrade to the current generation as well. So it's good to see, I have to say. So I'm curious. Probably the biggest, I think, next curiosity, I think, is probably going to be Call of Duty. I think, well, Call of Duty has always generally been multi-platform as long as they possibly can. But I don't know. I think this time, Modern Warfare 2, I think this is definitely the time I think they would go exclusively. I don't know. It's kind of like NBA, though. It's like you do get a very strong amount of sales from people that literally only buy a console just to play one specific game each year. So I can't even say that. I don't know. I'm curious. I think it's definitely possible. I'm not sure if it actually will happen though. They have done it though. They definitely have cut off generations where clearly, obviously it doesn't make sense. At least, especially considering the kind of discrepancy between the two, or the scale of, I don't know, power between the consoles. Yeah, I think it's time. I think it's time. Really do. I guess time will tell. And that concludes the news for this week. Dropping my juice. Okay. Let's get into what I've been playing. First off, I just want to say chaos. Okay. Because I did actually finish Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. I have to say, overall, interesting combat, engaging combat. Story was pretty weak for the most part, but then like insanely picked up towards the end, I'll say. Very surprised by the ending. I didn't see it coming when I think technically I could have saw it coming if I had enough foresight, but I didn't know where the hell I was going with this game, or where this game was going, considering certain stuff with what I talked about last episode. Freaking, what's his name? Jack Garland freaking randomly blasting Limp Bizkit out of nowhere, and this is within the Final Fantasy universe. But definitely one of the best, I would say one of the best endings of 2022 for sure. Yeah, I definitely stand by that. Definitely, yeah, if there was a award I would give for this game, it would definitely be one of the best endings of 2022 for sure, so far. For sure. I'll leave it at that. Definitely don't want to spoil it. But yeah, I did enjoy it. Especially if you're a fan of Final Fantasy. For me personally, my only frame of reference for Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy 7. Going into this game, I still had a pretty good time. I picked up on, some of the Final Fantasy staples and enemies, which are, in the game, like I think I mentioned as well. But pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good, I have to say. Yeah, I'm surprised by the combat. It feels similar to Dark Souls, but not really. It just, Dark Souls feels more intimidating than this game, and this game didn't feel as intimidating, even though it was hard. It felt like I was able to figure out enemies and bosses more consistently than Dark Souls. I think Dark Souls still feels difficult, but I think Stranger of Paradise, you put it like a little bit below it. Then again, I was playing on action difficulty. I think there was a hard one, which maybe might be more closer to Souls, but like it's like that for me defeats the whole point. So it's like, that's like if Dark Souls had a difficulty slider. Well, if I played Dark Souls for the first time and it had a difficulty slider, I would go normal. But if I played a traditional Dark Souls game that doesn't have a difficulty slider, and they somehow change their idea and release a game that is Souls like, but does have a difficulty slider now. And I feel like I would maybe put it to the hardest because of that, I don't know, tradition, I guess. But at least in this context with this game, I felt like action was challenging enough, but wasn't like debilitating or like crushing, I guess. It was definitely some tough bosses. It was this one boss in particular. I might have mentioned it before. Tiamat. Tiamat can die. I mean, I killed it, but it could die again if it wants. Where it's just a huge difficulty spike. But when you catch on, it seems to have, for me at least, definitely got me through. Shout out to the NPC teammates. That I think that was one aspect I was not actually utilizing enough, at least early on. But then further into the game, they help out a ton. Which I guess, you used teammates. You didn't really beat the game, did you? You didn't really beat the... whatever. Hey, a win's a win in my book. I will mistier... what is it? Mistier? I will mistier my ass into oblivion. I don't care. A win is a win. Oh, man, you use this broken weapon in the game. A win is a win. They cheap, too. Why can't I be cheap as well? Get out of here with that. I digress. Yeah, overall, fun game. Interesting setup, I have to say. Yeah, story was a little meh towards the beginning, but then picked up like tenfold towards the end. So I definitely recommend. Moving on. So as I was playing with the Steam Deck, which I'll talk about a little bit later, also as I was messing with that, I got back to playing Thug Pro, which I think I brought this up a long time ago, but essentially Thug Pro is basically Tony Hawk's Underground 2, but heavily modded for PC, where they, essentially added like all the maps from the previous games, and essentially it's like a fan mod for Thug 2, essentially, where it kind of brings everything back, and it's pretty dope, I have to say. You need like the base game of Tony Hawk's Underground 2, and then basically run this program that essentially ingrains itself within the game, and then makes its own, basically modifies it heavily, and it's been a fun experience. You can create your character, which I did. You can do the whole like what was the novelty back then, where you could like I think I remember at least vividly for the original Tony Hawk game, Thug game, you could take a picture of yourself and like send it to this app or whatever, or a website for Tony Hawk, and then you can actually download your face in the game and play it, which is pretty dope. I don't think I ever got a chance to utilize it, but was pretty dope either way. But you can actually do it via computer now. You can upload essentially any picture of yourself. I think they want you to be like face first into the camera and stuff like that, but once you do, you can implant your character in the game and kind of mess with it until it, you get them to your liking. It is a fun creative outlet just to kind of express yourself in that way. For a game like, I'm not a skater, but I love me some damn Tony Hawk. Let me tell you, I could not skate on a board for my life, but I could do some combos in Tony Hawk. I'm just saying. Definitely takes me back to original Thug days, playing Score Attack, Graffiti War, or I think, what is it, Graffiti Tag? I forgot what it's called. Essentially graffiti, where you fight for dominance. I think you grind, do tricks on various items, locations throughout the map, and I think you have to get a higher score than the person you're facing, because there was multiple people. Whoever gets the most tags wins. And then you got at least playing with Thug Pro. I mean, you kind of narrow down the the playing field to people who really know how to play. Because like, who's gonna put all the effort to get this working if you don't know how to play a Tony Hawk game or whatever? So you got some people that I feel like it's probably some term in the Tony Hawk community for it, where it's like dudes that will like literally not play until the timer ends, like for example like score attack or something, not play until the game the counter is almost done, and then they'll do this like 10 million combo, and you know, just to have people look at them specifically and take up all the damn time. I feel like that sounds like that should be a term, but I'm curious, I'll have to look that up. But so that's interesting aspect of the online community. But fun game, man. Fun game, especially you rolling some tunes. You can, you know, if you put in some extra elbow grease, you can make your custom soundtracks if you wanted to. But I think I did it and I lost the data and I feel like doing it again. So I've been pretty satisfied with just, you know, bumping my Spotify playlist I actually made for Tony Hawk when I was playing the 1 and 2 remake, official remake. So I've been enjoying that. That's actually been a pretty fun time. So Thug Pro, if you're into Tony Hawk, don't sleep on it. If you have a PC, comfortable, you know your way around some you know, folders and programs and are kind of savvy in that respect, and you have a PC, I think it's worth checking out. It really is. And with that being said, last but certainly not least, been playing more and more and more with the Steam Deck. Loving this thing lately, man. Ever since I got it, I have been very, very enamored with it. It is an impressive piece of kit, I have to say. Impressive piece of hardware. Valve is in a bag for sure. So I think I talked a little bit about it last episode, but to get more in depth, been just been hacking away at it literally pretty much the majority of this week. Just been well, I think the biggest hurdle for this deck is that it uses Linux as its primary operating system essentially. So pretty much when you're playing it, it's essentially kind of like, think of Steam in big picture mode. It's essentially doing the same thing, but with the Steam Deck, it's the Linux operating system using like a kind of a big picture overlay. Well, at least in this case, it's customized for the Steam Deck. So I guess the biggest hurdle for me as somebody who's of course a primary Windows user, trying to essentially learn a new operating system I've not really messed with previously, at least in terms of a GUI standpoint. At least during college, I messed with Linux and stuff a little bit, but it was mainly command line based, not necessarily GUI based. But at least with this, that's kind of what I'm starting to relearn, and it's a very initial steep learning curve, but I've slowly but surely attained more knowledge in terms of getting my way around the interface with this. The big one was I was trying to use this mouse and keyboard sharing software, which I actually use with my 2 PC setup, which is, when you get it working, it is magnifique. So that was my biggest hurdle, trying to get that to install. It like uses a different file system, and then because of that, I don't think they upgraded it alongside with the Windows version, so I wasn't even sure if it might even work. But somehow, after research and sleuthing around, managed to get it installed, um and it actually started working. So I was like, oh, okay, all right, we cooking. So essentially, so I could just connect my mouse and keyboard to the Steam Deck when I have it docked and be able to, switch back and forth easily without having just a clutter of mouse and keyboards and stuff, looking like a real hacker. I guess to an extent I kind of am, really. At the very basic level, I definitely say. But so that was a big undertaking. Specifically PCSX2, which has been a hurdle with the device because I think it was some update to it, somewhat recent update that like broke PCSX2 that I think a lot of people have been reporting after I researched it. But that was my other big reason for playing this. I wanted like a portable PS2, especially, of course, one of the biggest monumental developments is that I actually got Outbreak working. Yes. Yes. Resident Evil Outbreak on the go and online, apparently. I was able to connect, but then it started acting weird when I put it in portable mode. So, but I think it's attributed to the update, the recent update that came out. So still need to do some tinkering to get that going, as well as play some other PS2 games, that's a big selling point for me personally. So that's been interesting. But then of course just general emulation outside of that, like getting all my SNES, Genesis, and other games to play on it, which so far I've not really dived into that yet. I've just been messing with Emu Deck, which installs all the emulators like in one fell swoop without too much kind of sleuthing on your end, which has been great. But there's definitely some tinkering I still need to do with some of the emulators. Like Dreamcast is still iffy. Wasn't able to necessarily get the PSX to cooperate as well. N64 seems to be kind of hit or miss, but then again, I think it's just some settings I need to adjust, I'll assume, for each game for that. So probably one of the bigger wins for sure is Legend of the Double Dragon, Ultimate Double Dragon. What else? Streets Rage 2X. Essentially a lot of beats of rage games I actually also got working on the deck. So this machine so far is feeling like it's just, I mean, really majority of stuff I threw at it, it actually was able to play. Like Thug Pro, I actually got it to work, but to get it to work consistently, had to do a little bit more sleuthing. Apparently somebody figured out a way to get it installed on Linux, which is essentially it's a container within Linux that like lets you play I guess depending stuff through Windows on Linux, pretty much, where it kind of emulates Windows is like architecture and lets you play some games that way. Of course not all games work. Haven't come across a game that necessarily didn't work, that at least I really wanted to make work, at least. But of course, going back to Steam's library, there are games that like don't work, at least for now, that I assume they're periodically working down the road to actually get working. So that's gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to that. But overall, I am very satisfied with the Steam Deck. I feel like I'm definitely getting what I want out of it. It definitely is not for the faint of heart for people who aren't versed in like PC, I guess, knowledge, if that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Where people who aren't comfortable with advanced computer usage, I think you might have somewhat limited use out of this Steam Deck. But if you are one of those people that do like to sleuth a little bit and actually get more capabilities and, play with stuff and, things that might be more difficult or time consuming, may take more patience to get up and running, and then, actually figuring something out and getting that, hit a dopamine, actually getting something working that you think you at least initially thought, nah, I don't think this can really work. Is pretty fun feeling. So it's like kind of like I'm playing with PC for the first time all over again, which I'm surprisingly surprised by, I guess, of how much I am getting engaged with it and wanting to tinker with it and improve it and make things easier to play and just make this like essentially the ultimate portable machine for me in terms of the games I want to play on the go that I never thought I would necessarily be able to play on the go. So, man, Steam Deck, have to say, it's pretty great. If you have the patience and the PC knowledge, computer knowledge, technology knowledge, I think it's definitely worth it. You definitely a lot of ways to get what you want out of it. Which, I think always the philosophy with PC. It's like you get what you put into it essentially, and at least with the Steam Deck, the potential is definitely there for sure. So, yeah. Don't get me wrong, there's some weird oversights that I think, of course, they're still working on. Probably the most annoying aspect I've been encountering as of late is that if you do dock it and have a setup for another external monitor or whatever, it seems to be some weird resolution thing where if you, at least in my case, I have it go to 4K, but I think because of the Steam Deck's in portable modes native resolution, which is I think essentially 720p but like slightly above that, at least when you're on the game interface, the Steam Deck interface, it does not populate properly in terms of like the various fields. But if you reboot it or put it into desktop mode, it seems to be fine. But then even then, it seems like it's caught on or thinking that it's at the Steam Deck's resolution, even though it is 4K, where it does essentially limits your mouse movement capability and pretty much forces you to restart it if you want to get it to actually move across the screen. So definitely huge obvious oversights that I think will get patched and resolved in due time. I think when Valve's official dock for the deck comes out, I think they'll probably more than likely have all these like weird oddities squashed out before then. So, but yeah, at least definitely from a hardware standpoint, very impressed. Very impressed. I think it definitely lived up to the hype. I knew what I was getting into with it, that it wasn't going to be it wasn't going to be peaches and cream jumping into this. So, but yeah, Steam Deck, it's great. I am a believer. I am a it's probably going to be somebody is going to come up with a term that's going to catch on. What is it? A Gaben? Are you a Gabist? Gabist, I guess. I don't know. I'm making up terms. A Gabe Gear Gabist. It's great. I recommend it. Again, with with the stipulations I mentioned before. If you have patience, if you are computer savvy, computer knowledgeable, and you have a pretty beefy Steam library, I think that's another factor too. I think you could definitely get a lot out of the Steam Deck. Very, very satisfied. Yeah. worth the wait. And with that being said, I think that will conclude episode 153 of Switch's Sights. If you did like the podcast, feel free to like, rate, and subscribe on your subscribe on your various podcasting platforms. Please, if you can, give me that 5-star love on those platforms as well. You can catch me live on Twitch TV/ASwitch, as well as on YouTube.com/ASwitch. Until next time, y'all, get your damn game on. Feel free to fuck. Aw, yeah. Nobody's safe.